Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the first episode ever of Talk of the Empire with me, Nilpferd and ZeroEmpires.
Hey guys, I'm really happy to be here. I've literally just flown in to be here right now, and we're going to kick things off today. I'm really excited for this.
Sweet, sweet, yeah. Me and Zach both had the idea of doing a talk show again for AOC after we had State of the Empire with Dreams in the old days. And yeah, so we came up with the idea of doing it together, and I'm super excited to do it as well.
Yeah, definitely. Talk of the Empire, State of the Empire, yeah, keeping things kind of going there.
Yeah,
And that was so long ago as well. It's about time, to be honest.
yeah, true. Was it like 2012-ish or something? It was a
Yeah, it
bit
was
before
really long.
Tyrant times.
Yeah, it was. It was seriously long ago, and there's so much to talk about in Age of Empires. I think on like a weekly or not bi-weekly, bi-monthly basis, there's so much to discuss that I think something like this would be really cool.
Yeah.
And I actually had a similar idea to do something, and then you messaged me and said, "Hey, I'm going to do this talk show," and I was like, "Oh, neat!" I was actually thinking the same. Let's collaborate, and so here we are.
Here we are indeed. So, our plan for the future is that mainly the two of us are hosting the whole thing, and we will talk about different topics and things that happen in the AOC world. And yeah, maybe have some other guests. I'm obviously planning to take some guests for the Arabia 2v2 tournament, maybe get even Yo there when it goes into Nations Cup to ask the Brazilians, and so on and so on. We have lots of people in the AOC community to talk about. But for the first episode, I want to have the focus on you actually, Zach.
Yeah, cool. I was not expecting that when you first messaged me about it, but I think it makes sense, and we can talk about what we've been up to as well to kick things off, and then we can bring guests in next time.
Pretty great.
Cool.
So, Zach, I did my research and did take a look at your social media, and we have incredible numbers there. Twitter, 1.4k followers, Facebook, 6k likes, Twitter, 22k followers, and YouTube, incredible 70k subscribers. How did that ever happen?
Well, I couldn't tell you exactly, but it was a long time. That's over nearly 5 years now. So it's been building up slowly but surely. And yeah, I mean, the YouTube is the main focus. And I mean, really, I'm just kind of using the Facebook and the Twitter to notify people about any streams or any updates or something like that. But yeah, YouTube 5 years ago, no, I would say nearly 5 years ago now. And yeah, it takes a long time to build these things up. And yeah, I think a lot of people have found AOC over the years thanks to it. So I'm happy about that.
That's so true. And I think you brought so many people actually back to AOC, making sure that you thought about HD growing and Woobly growing at the same time. And you worked for it I would have said 3 to 4 years, maybe it's 4 to 5 years. But
Yeah.
then you took a break in the start of this year. Was it February or March or something?
Yeah, it was around January. I made a video to say that I was going to stop sort of regularly uploading. But then I kind of changed that to not uploading at all because I just wasn't really finding the time earlier in the year. And that was around January, February time.
Okay. So, yeah, cutting back in AOC means you did what during that time?
Well, I mean, the reason why I stopped was because I was setting up a company back in January, February, called Escape Gaming, and that's been the focus of my attention for quite a long while now. And I kind of decided to step away from doing Age of Empires stuff and focus my attention there because it was a nice break and it was something different and it was taking a lot of time as well.
Okay, then talk a bit about this project. Obviously, people who aren't too familiar with other games and only have the focus on AOC and never
Yeah.
probably heard of Escape Gaming before actually you started cooperation, but that's a topic we come back on later. So talk about
Yeah.
Escape Gaming except AOC.
Okay. Well, so Escape Gaming was formed in it was actually formed in March, but the plans for it started quite a bit earlier than that. And it's essentially a multi-gaming organization, which is comparable to the likes of, I wouldn't put us on the same level as these teams, but Fnatic, NIP, Team Secret, the big orgs out there. And that's what we were kind of aiming to become and to grow into. And the main focus for us was to try and make esports more professional, because esports as a whole right now is still growing really quickly, and there's still a lot of distance for it to go before it can be considered a really serious professional thing. And we thought, we can go in and we can set up a team that has good morals and wants to look after the players and not screw people over, set up proper contracts, and do things properly like a proper company should do in the esports space.
Is it
So
is it that common that people get screwed over in esports? Like I heard like people not getting paid for tournaments, but it's like,
yeah,
could you
it can
elaborate that?
it can happen. I mean, I don't want to give any specific examples, but smaller teams like tier two teams, for example, there's a lot of cases where people won't be paid properly, or they won't even get a salary at all. There's cases where organizers don't pay for their events properly, and if you're trying to become a professional player in CS:GO or Dota or something, and you're trying to work your way up, you need the support, because it's very difficult when you're having to devote so much time into something, but the reward is very little until you become better. And that's made worse by the fact that you have a lot of unreliable organizations in the lower levels, and you have a lot of organizers who don't pay out for their tournaments at a low level. So what we wanted to do was make sure that if we said we were going to pay a player a certain amount, that they would be paid that, and they can rely on that income, and then they can focus their whole time and effort into gaming, and then hopefully grow as a player and become better at what they do and what they want to achieve.
Okay, makes sense. But it seemed like Escape Gaming was super like successful, and obviously AOC isn't like the big esports title if it ever was one. So why are
Sure.
you planning to include AOC in Escape Gaming?
Okay, well, I mean, I would start by saying that really, sometimes you get caught up in your daily rituals working on projects. And for me at the time, last year, at the end of last year, I was so involved with AOC, and it was taking up a huge amount of my time. It was taking up, every day I was doing something Age of Empires related, and it kind of consumed me. It made me feel very narrow-minded, and I wasn't really looking outside of Age of Empires.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided to do the escape gaming thing and step away from AOC, because for me personally, I wanted to step back and take a look at the bigger picture. I was so focused on AOC, and I wanted to look at other games, and I wanted to see how other games and other esports were handling things. How are they running their tournaments? How are their organizations operating? How are the players working inside of esports? And so by setting up the company and going along with that, I gained a huge amount of knowledge about how all those things are ran, and also how the like just all the details about esports as a whole, and meeting potential sponsors and partners from big companies. And obviously, 4.5, 5 years ago, I started the Age of Empires channel because I wanted to help Age of Empires grow. And that was my only goal with starting the channel. I wasn't a very good player, and I'm still not a very good player now, but hopefully by entertaining people and making them aware of Age of Empires, then people will come back to the game,
Mm-hmm.
they'll re-find it, rediscover it, and we'll keep the community alive, and we'll keep bringing people in. And so after being away for like 6, 7 months doing escape gaming stuff, probably longer even, and gaining this knowledge, I wanted to kind of bring that back to AOC, because I mean, that's where it kind of all began for me. And that's where I'm really invested in the long term anyway. Regardless if I take a break or not, it's still in my heart, I guess.
Okay. So yeah, that what I always would have thought. Like you're so like as you said, your heart is with AOC. Like how much are you into other games? Because if you want to found a CS team, a Dota team,
Yeah.
maybe expand to LoL, Hearthstone, or whatever big games you're aiming to go for, are you actually interested in those games as
Yeah.
well?
Yeah, I'm interested. I mean, I was really, really into CSGO for a long while, and I recently got Global Elite, which is not really something to brag about because there's quite a lot of people out there who are Global Elite. But, I spend a lot of time playing those games, and I feel like if I'm going to include a team or, sorry, a game into our organization, I want to at least understand it a little bit. I've played a few hundred hours of Dota. I know the basics. The same with Hearthstone, and they're really enjoyable. And I think it's really good to broaden your horizons. And even if you don't like the game in the end, at least try it because you're probably going to learn something. And I think for the Age of Empires community, for a game that's so old, that's stood up for so long, nearly 20 years now, it's always good to look at other games and see what they're doing and see, okay, well, if this is how their competitive scene is working, can we take any inspiration from that? Can we be inspired by that and make our competitive scene interesting or more interesting as well?
Okay, okay. Yeah, it makes absolute sense. And so now you launched a pretty interesting project with Escape Gaming for AOC. You took probably like the six most important streamers. Let me count again. Six most
Yeah,
important streamers. It's Resonance22, who's
yeah,
mainly streaming HD stuff on Fridays and Saturdays. Uh, Super sexy voice, nice person.
yes,
T90, who's got super successful with his series, broke four digits often in the last months.
yeah,
Obviously, the Viper, the best player.
yeah,
MBL, the most regular streamer, streams feels like 60 hours a week or something, always high numbers, and obviously yourself. So you got basically the who is who of all AOC.
that's
And
true.
now, what's your goal with this group?
Okay, well, I mean, to
Ah,
start
MEMP. I
things,
forgot MEMP. I
of
wrote
course,
down,
yeah, sorry.
and MEMP and MBL looked so much the same.
Yeah,
Now that doesn't really work here. But yeah, so MEMP obviously like
yeah, as well.
the face for Woobly for years, and
Yeah.
now for like the
Well,
last 13 months, super active on his own channel and got a huge growth as well.
yeah. In my opinion, Member's streaming too much. He needs to chill out a little bit with the streaming.
Okay.
He's draining himself with the stream, but he's really devoted to it, and I think that's really good. Member's doing a good job for the community as well. He's putting in so much time, and yeah, it's great. It's the same for all of the streamers that are included, and in time, I would hope that we can include more streamers in this. But we started with the biggest streamers or the ones with the largest audience or following, just because right now the deal is with Twitch, right? It's between Escape Gaming and Twitch.
Hmm.
And I can only go to Twitch with so many people that I want to add into our team before they start asking questions. Okay, why do you want to add all these people? I can't really go ahead and just do that. But as far as what's the plan, I think is what you asked, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the plan is with the deal that we have with Twitch, basically, so normally you have a subscription revenue share. When someone subscribes to your channel, some of the money goes to Twitch and some of it goes to you as the streamer. The deal that Escape Gaming has with Twitch is that we can get more money for each subscriber that subscribes to one of these streams. So as a result, by having more revenue generated, the streamers, they're all going to benefit, right? And we said, well, okay, if you're going to all benefit, then how about some of that additional money that's generated, we put into a pool together. So everyone at the end of each month, they put some of that money together, and then we host events and we create tournaments and things like that, which we can then all stream and we can all contribute to and kind of collaborate on. And then hopefully, that's more things for the Age of Empires community to enjoy. We can put a decent prize pool together for these things and keep things going, keep things ticking over with money that wouldn't have been there otherwise.
Okay. Just give me a assumption of how many subscribers do all of the six people have combined?
Oh, I actually don't know right now. Let me have a quick think. I would say Mem's at what, nearly 200, I think it's 225, I think.
He broke 200 for sure.
Yeah, I think he's
I,
aiming for
I
250.
saw 330, but it might have been like the last subscriber. What his name was
Oh.
330. I was a bit confused there.
Okay, yeah, I don't know. I think he's aiming for 250 right now. And I would assume that Viper can get that, and I assume that I would be able to get that. And so if we're able between six of us to get 1,000 subscribers, then that's a decent amount every month that can go towards prize pools, basically.
Yeah,
It's $500.
$500. So you're giving 50 cents away. Okay, okay.
Hmm.
Okay,
Which
yeah,
is
$500. Yeah.
it's not a lot, but like over the course of 2 or 3 months, that's going to add up and become a reasonable prize pool.
Okay. Yeah, someone in the chat is asking, is there a plan for a team of actually like making an escape gaming players team? Like to fight
Uh,
against SY tyrants and such? Or is it at the moment just a streaming?
No, it's just the streaming for now. I mean, okay, it's a nice idea, but I mean, the amount of time, the thing is, it's always a trade-off between the amount of time you spend doing something and then what you get out of it. And, I spend a lot of time managing the Dota team. I was just at DreamHack for 3 days in Sweden, and I was there with the Dota team, and they were playing in Dream League, and they ended up finishing second. But it was a huge amount of work. But it's really worth it at the end because there's a lot of money there. There's a lot of sponsors who are interested in that, and to spend a lot of time and energy into running an Age of Empires team, I feel like the trade-off isn't really worth it at this stage.
Okay.
And I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not all about like money at the end of the day. But if we want to pay our players and we want to spread the proceeds around, then we need to make sure that we're spending time and energy in the places that are going to give us the better opportunities.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, makes sense. So aiming for $500 a month
Yeah,
for
and I
escape
think
gaming, putting into
we could push
tournaments.
that up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like, but that's like a reasonable number. I believe like
yeah,
you easily have like 500 subscribers already. Someone in the
yeah,
chat said that T90 has over 200 subscribers as well.
yeah.
So
So we're close to that already,
yeah, so
basically.
$500 per month AOC tournaments. Like, what are you aiming for in those tournaments? What formats are you aiming for? What players are you trying to reach? Who are those guys actually streaming all of those games? How are you dividing that? Just give me some
Okay.
thoughts.
Yeah, so I mean, we don't want to run something every single month necessarily. There's obviously going to be the money generated every month, but we might pull that together every 2 or 3 months. We might save it up for something really big and do something a little bit larger every like 4 months, let's say. So it's not like it's going to be monthly tournaments every month,
Mhm.
but we will definitely consider what to do as and when. We'll see how much money is being generated. And, it's not necessarily about just running our own events. We're also interested in what's going on with the rest of the community. And obviously, there's a lot of events being organized at the moment. There's a lot of different events being organized all the time, and we can put money towards that as well. In the same way that Voobly Official is funding the Champions League, I think with $150. So we could easily say, okay, well, let's put another $100 into that. Let's match that and double the prize pool. And I think that would be really cool. But as far as organizing our own events is concerned, it's not really going to be okay, so the six streamers and the people involved, they're obviously going to have an input, and they're going to talk and decide what kind of event they want to do. But we're really looking at getting the organizers of current tournaments involved. So, Robbo, for example, he's doing a lot in the community, and he would be involved, for example, in maybe adminning. The same for others in the community that do a similar job. And we would kind of ask those guys to give us some suggestions and to kind of moderate, because I think it could be, I don't want to say that we would be selfish, but we want to make sure that there's outside input as well, not just coming from the six of us who are doing this.
Makes total sense. Okay. Wait. So,
Yeah.
and do you think it will, like the last tournaments we had were like big 4v4 tournaments spread
Mm.
over like 3 to 5 months, at least felt that
Yeah.
long, or like 1v1 tournaments for like only top players spread over like 2 months. Do you think you will go into that direction, or like I personally, the last tournaments I all did were like weekend tournaments?
Yeah, we would want to do shorter events, really. I think that's where the most action is. I've never personally been a fan of the events that last for 4 or 5 months or whatever. I think they drag on too long. As a viewer, it makes it very difficult to keep the excitement levels up. It makes it very difficult to follow what's going on, as you get confused between all these different names and all these different events. So I think we try and keep things kind of, I'd say, bite-sized, maybe running it between, a weekend or 2 weeks long, or maybe a month at most, I feel. That would really be the goal. But like I said, that's kind of my opinion on that. And we'd also want to hear from the other people in the community, other tournament organizers, and talk to them about what they think is best as well. And I think, generally speaking, doing shorter events will work better, sorry, and it's going to keep the excitement levels up for the community.
Okay, makes total sense.
Mm.
Okay, sweet. Anything else you want to talk about yourself or Escape Gaming that we didn't mention yet?
Let me think. Yeah, there's probably stuff. There's a lot of stuff that's been happening in the last 6 months, which I've been involved in. Not Age of Empires related, but Escape Gaming related. It's been a lot of work. It's taken a lot of time, or a lot of my time doing all this stuff. Originally, we started with CS:GO. We actually ended up dropping our CS:GO team, and we picked up our Dota team. And the Dota team has done really, really well. We kind of didn't expect them to do as well as they did, and they kind of surprised a little bit. But just to give you a rundown of the things that we've been doing, we went to the International in August, which was in Seattle, and it's a tournament organized by Valve. And the prize pool was $20 million.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like, it blew me away. It was amazing to just see the scale of that. The Key Arena in Seattle was filled with 20,000 Dota fans, and everyone was cheering, and it was just insane. And like this weekend as well at DreamHack, there was a smaller Dota stage where we played, and there was, I think, $185,000 prize pool. We ended up coming second to Team Liquid, who played really, really well. And again, the guys surprised. They weren't really anticipating to do so well, and they keep performing really nicely. But at all of these events, I've personally had opportunities to meet people, potential sponsors, for example, that I could talk to and say, hey, look, we're going to run an Age of Empires event. We think we're going to get this many viewers. Are you interested in maybe doing a small sponsorship? For example, NVIDIA, I have really good contact with right now, and we did a boot camp for our Dota team before the Boston qualifier, which is another Dota event that sadly we didn't qualify for. But we went to Germany, and NVIDIA provided us with 5 PCs. And we got to use the PCs for the boot camp time, and that was really great. And then there was another company called Case King that provided us with a location in Berlin where we could actually stay for the week and do our boot camp. So what I really want to work on now is trying to talk to these companies once we've started running some events, and getting them interested in Age of Empires, because I think that would be a really good step, and I think it would be just super cool to see. On top of that, there's also some other stuff which is going to be announced very soon. I can't talk about it now, but I think people are going to be very excited about it when it kind of comes out, because it's kind of a big deal, and you'll see what that's about maybe in a week's time, I think. I hope.
AOC or Escape Gaming related?
AOC / Escape Gaming related.
Ah, sweet.
It's made possible by the fact that Escape Gaming is involved, but it's still AOC, like 100% AOC.
Okay, sweet. Then, what's the nationality of your people from your Dota team?
Okay, so the Dota team is completely mixed.
Yeah.
The furthest away is the guy from Jordan, and that's a pretty long way for him to travel, because most of the events are in Europe.
Yeah.
And then we have a guy in Germany, we have a guy in Sweden, we have a guy in Denmark, and we have a guy in Finland as well.
Sick.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, so bootcamping in Germany and flying them all in. Sweet.
Yeah.
And then I think I
And we
have...
also, sorry, just
Yeah,
interrupt.
go ahead.
We also have a Hearthstone player as well. He's Sidonia. He's from Canada.
Hmm.
He was also at DreamHack this weekend, and Resonance 22 is actually his manager. So
Ah,
that's like
okay, okay.
I was talking to him a long while ago, and he's been sorting him out. He actually finished top 8 at BlizzCon, which was a huge achievement. BlizzCon's
Ah,
the
yeah.
biggest Hearthstone tournament in the world, and he got top 8, and that was a $1 million tournament. So he did really well there.
Yeah, sweet, sweet shit. So you like for a very new team, like not even existing 1 year, you have two great teams already, right? They're going to
Yeah,
the Invitational and going to BlizzCon. So like very nice picks. But
yeah.
yeah.
It did well. It did well. I see Mobius one in the chat said he's curious to know what the interest level is of these companies in RTS games like Age of Empires. I know there's definitely like some interest still left in StarCraft 2, but the thing that I think about Age of Empires is that okay, so companies are interested in two things. The first is how many viewers are going to be on the event? How many people is the event going to reach? And obviously that's like the amount of return of their investment in a sense. If they put $1,000 into something and you can get them 1 million views, then they might think that's very valuable. So if we can convince them that, then they might be interested. Obviously, it's going to be smaller than other esports. But the second thing I think they're interested in is like the novelty aspect of it. I think it would be cool for them to be able to say, okay, look, we're actually doing an Age of Empires thing. This game's like 20 years old. Here we are. Let's bring it back. And I don't know. I think they could be interested in that kind of stuff. It's all about the angle at the end of the day.
Okay. Yeah, it makes total sense.
Yeah.
So then, if we're done with that, then we can go into like real AOC talk now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah. So, newest idea of a very nice team consisting of a lot of experts, a lot of from the Woobly stuff, programmers from Woobly themselves. Janet came back, and a lot of hard work was put into it. The X patch. Did you take a look at it?
Yeah, I kind of looked on the train on the way home,
Mhm.
and I knew about this a little bit before it was announced. I just didn't know many details, and I think the guys behind it have a lot of high hopes for it, and we will see if those high hopes are going to be matched by the community, I guess. But I'm interested to know what you think. You're the more intelligent AOC player. You know more about the game. I'm interested to know what you think about the actual balance changes that have been made so far.
Okay, so I think first of all we have to talk about like balance patches in general
Yeah, sure.
because there have been so many ideas of balance patches. Let's say just the balance patch of Carlos Ferdinand or something.
Yeah,
Um, I hope I pronounced him correctly.
I think you
Uh,
did.
yeah, then we had a balance tournament, a balance patch tournament with it, and everyone played it, and lots of people had fun, but no one continued to play it afterwards, which isn't like, which isn't the aim of the balance patch because maybe you
Yeah.
want to have them transitioning into it, and therefore I think the biggest concern of a balance patch in general is to not think about the balance itself. That's just for the later stages, but to make sure that people actually take it seriously
Hmm.
and are actually going to play it and maybe transition to it in the long run.
Yeah.
And I feel like the AOC community is so stubborn and not really open to change. Look at all the Rublies players
Hmm.
who are like so against going to HD, not playing The Forgotten, not playing African Kingdoms, and not accepting balance patches. Like I had hard work, like people who play it every day and should be so fed up with what they're doing to convince them to my tournament
Hmm.
because they have like untypical settings and
Yeah.
people are like so much focusing on all the old stuff and want to perfect there. So, and I think they're doing kind of the right steps. So, for example, Carlos Ferdinand did like one patch which should solve all problems.
Mm.
The approach now is to start with some minor changes and then do more and more changes to like slowly adapt into a better game, and that's how Blizzard is doing it as well. Like their patches before a new expansion comes are always like building up for a greater change, and they try to figure out how small changes will affect the big game. So I like the idea behind that.
Yeah, I think it's the best way to do it if you're going to do it at all. Make small changes piece by piece and kind of iterate on what you have already. Though I would argue that Blizzard's changes to Hearthstone over the last year have been quite questionable, and they might not necessarily be the best thing for the game.
Mm-hmm.
I spoke
Okay.
to a few. I spoke to a few pros at DreamHack, and they were all complaining about Blizzard and the randomness. But we shouldn't get into that. I think really though it's definitely the right approach. The question is, will it be adopted by the community? What needs to happen for this patch to be entertained by the community
Mm-hmm.
and for them to consider playing it? And is the goal to actually have everybody using this patch? I mean, what is the end goal there?
Yeah, that's not really clear. Maybe I would obviously love if all the like 2.1 communities like HD, Woobly, and the small part of Game Ranger, which I'm not really sure if there's any active community anymore, but it's so bad that we are divided. And my big goal would be like combining all of them. And I think like doing a balance patch now won't really help that issue, because if like Woobly is getting cut in half now as well, that isn't great. And I don't really
Yeah.
see all of them transitioning. Maybe the approach to get as many people as possible is either forfeited via Woobly, which is
Yeah.
pretty ugly,
Yeah.
or like do a huge tournament with the like flattest payout structures ever. Like
Yeah.
pay 10 people under 1500, pay 10 people under 1700, pay 10 people under 2k, pay 10 people from the top or something. And all spreading like 1k so that everyone is actually playing and has to focus on it. And that would be like a sick revolutionizing option. But that's still super tough to accomplish.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think that's like you said earlier that the community's kind of split right now, and you see a lot of the older players from Voobly, and they're not willing to try AOE or like the Forgotten or African Kingdoms. But I think the reason they're not willing to try that is just because of how buggy it is on AOE or has been for a long time. And so they're not willing to switch across because of that and try those out. And it's not easy to play the Forgotten or African Kingdoms on Voobly. I think it's easier to play the Forgotten, right? But African Kingdoms, it's a little more fiddly. And people just want to play the game that they've known and loved for the last 20 years. So I think if the balance patch wants to be successful, then I feel like everybody has to be on the same level with it. Everyone has to be playing the same balance. And we can't have what we saw on Game Ranger, I feel, which is people playing, 1.0, 1.0A, 1.0B, 1.0C. It's a mess, and it's just, that's not good.
Yeah, yeah. Like I never understood how people could still be stuck at playing AOK,
Yeah.
and some people are now playing AOC with old AOK rules on deathmatch, for example. Like
Yeah.
you are only allowed to build like 3 traps and not more than 40 X-Men or something. Like so many weird rules, and yeah, and people are still playing it that way, and yeah, it's so sad that it's divided. And if only like HD would have came out half a year later with way less bugs, and everyone would have been like
Mm.
taking the hype over, and all the new
Yeah.
players. Wasn't it sold like 3.5 million times?
Yeah, there's 3.5 million copies of AOE on Steam accounts. So
So sick.
it's a lot of people, and I think a lot of those people have come over to Voobly as well. But I think that the advantage that if you look at Dota, if you look at CS:GO and other competitive games, they always get regular balance updates, right? Especially games like Dota and Hearthstone, where it's more strategical,
Mhm.
like at a core level. they get balance updates regularly, and you could argue that the people who make these balance updates, they don't really know what they're doing. You see so many times balance updates where the community's like, oh, this is bullshit, you've just broken this whole thing, and people like to get up and complain about it.
Yeah.
But give it a week and all those people have shut up and they're waiting for the next balance patch, because it's expected that in a month's time the balance will change and they can try new things. And I think personally, like, if you look at League of Legends and Dota, I know they're different games, they're different kind of genres, but they're not trying to make a perfect balance. And I think the goal here with Age of Empires should not be to make a perfect balance. I think the goal should be to change the balance enough that some civilizations become more favorable and other civilizations become less favorable, and then change the balance again so that kind of those civilizations change. And that way you're going to see like a rotation in a sense. I feel like if the community could open their minds a bit to maybe just trying something a little different, then it could open a big door to regular balance changes, which everybody plays. And I guess I'm just being a little bit too optimistic, but I think that would be really cool. Like, just to give a real brief example, in Dota, you've got 110 heroes. A lot of the time, some of the a bunch of those heroes will be out of the metagame, and Valve will make it, or IceFrog will make a change. It will bring some of those heroes in, and some other heroes will drop out of the metagame. A month later, they do it again. A month later, they do it again, and it's constantly changing. Now, I'm not saying that is the best thing for AOC. I'm not saying that's what we should have. But is the goal to make a perfect balance where any civ can be chosen in any situation?
Yeah, that's not how the game is designed. It obviously is designed so that Vikings beat Aztecs on water and Aztecs beats Vikings on Meteor or Black Forest or something. And
exactly.
that makes just total sense, like how the game is developed in general.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
Yeah, the aim is just to not like have civs like never getting picked. And that's something we have with like Franks, Koreans, Saracens, and yeah. You can watch the worst 5 civilizations. You once did a video for that. And yeah.
So, I mean, my question right now is, okay, so if this patch is to become, let's say, the standard of AOC, if this is to take over from AOC balance that we know now, what needs to happen for that to become the case? Like, what needs to happen between now and the patch being used by 100% of the Vubli community, or, thereabouts?
Yeah, I don't see many options because I know how the community works, and it's so tough. As I said, like a super big tournament so that all the pro players are forced into it. More enjoyment for all the new players, and like making it super easy to play it. Like you don't have to download it, but you maybe one day just everyone is switching to that, and you have to like manually switch it back to 1.c or something, so that everyone has to try it and everyone has the option to actually see, wow, now we created a better game. For example, I love the idea behind the market change, the trade card change. The trade card change is, it changes from pop 1 to 2 pop and is way more efficient. And so that means that like having a bad map isn't that bad anymore, because the trade card itself is more efficient. So the variance is reduced by bad maps on like Black Forest or Land Nomad or something. And you have like way less units on the map in general. So they are blocking each other less as well. And it lags the game a lot less. Because obviously in late, let's call it Black Forest games, everyone has like 50 to 60 trade cards. In a 4v4, that's never do math on stream, like roughly 200 to 220. And if you just cut out 110 units per site, it's just like 250, 200 units less that every computer itself has to work with.
Well, it's not even the computer at that point, because most people's computer can run the game just fine. It's more the engine itself is limited to how many units it can have inside of it. And, the game was not actually made to have 200 population as standard. It was designed to have 75. And that actually brings us to an interesting point, right? 75 population actually was the original like standard balance for the game. That's what the developers set. That's why it's 75 pop in all the original campaigns. And I'm wondering, if they balanced the game around 75 population, if that's truly what they did, then surely it's only logical that the balance would be not quite right at 200, which is the standard nowadays.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so true. Yeah, and there were so many different things like when they played it originally, and yeah,
Mm.
but makes total sense. Like map sizes. Think about like HD at the start had 1v1's map size 3, and then after the first patch they changed it to map size 4 because everyone felt like, oh god, they're rushing too much. And yeah, one thing a guy in the chat said, which is a nice point, is since there are so many AOC players who only play it AOC from time to time, like big changes will be so bad for them because you have to readjust to the meta, and you're playing the game. Let's say like we are playing it quite often, but there are players who like do it once a weekend every 2 months or something, and then coming back and not having the same game you are actually craving for makes it so much harder to continue.
I kind of disagree with that. That's really a problem.
Okay.
Because the kind of players who play every, one weekend out of every 2 weeks, they're not the kind of players who are at the higher level who are going to really notice these changes and the impact of the game as much. I think those are the kind of players who want to have fun with their friends. And if a few stats have changed, we're not talking about huge changes here. We're talking about small changes that are going to have small influence on the game. I don't think they would even necessarily notice straight away if it was forced. I think the point underneath that in the chat from Will Work for Ice Cream is interesting, though, which is that he said the thing that other games have is they have developers and they have the power to make the balance changes and force it on the players.
Yeah.
And there's no way that can work in AOC because you can't force it on the players unless you do force it on the players, and unless Voobly decides, okay, let's actually force it on the players. Like, what's the fallout of that? What's the result of that? Are people going to be that pissed off if you force everyone to have this?
And there's no chance.
If the changes are going to be so small. Like, let's say they remove the Dark Age transport thing and, like, maybe a couple of other controversial ones. Are people going to be that pissed off that they would just stop playing Age of Empires? Really?
Yeah, there's no chance of programming another platform. So, like, there's no switching. And yeah, I think there won't be. And especially if you do it step by step. And it's like, that's obviously like a huge debate in all political stuff. If you do like bad things, and I only like try to make a symbol or metaphor here. Like if you do bad stuff step by step, no one will really notice it and will be pissed. But if you do like 3 bad steps at a time, everyone will get full rage mode. So that's obviously like playing a bit with people, but we all have good intentions with AOC. So if we do balance patches and balance changes, then actually everyone is aiming to make it better. And if I take a look at the lineup, they are extremely clever guys in that lineup. So I think the overall like approach there is so good, and they're had lots of ideas and lots of great ideas. And if we have controversial ones, they are super open for feedback. Like Jeanette asked me several times here, mate, what can we do to make this game better? What do we need to change? And everyone is so open. So I personally am a big fan of the idea behind it. And now the big step is to kind of implement it in some way.
Yeah, I think there's really 2 ways to do that. Like I said before, let's say they reduce the changes down just a little bit and remove the controversial ones like the Dark Age transport, for example, and then they force it on every player. Okay, it's going to piss off some people, but give it a couple of weeks, people will probably forget about it, or maybe not forget about it, but be used to it, and they'll accept it. And if there's a huge amount of feedback on one specific change, then the team can change it back. They can reforce the update or force a new update, which reverts that change, for example. I personally think that could work, and it just takes some balls to do it, to be honest. It's just whether or not that you can get all of these people in agreement to do this kind of thing. And I think that's so difficult when there is no centralized like game developer who would decide this. The second thing is to do tournaments, and I mean, I'm really on the fence about whether or not that would actually make really much change at all. Would hosting regular tournaments make that much difference to actually having people adopt this?
No, not really. Like as you saw with like my Clash of the Hippo tournaments, like I had 16 invited players, 4 or 5 really took it seriously, trained against each other and like focused on it, and the rest just didn't care. And I don't see people doing more than just reading through. I know I talked to the Viper. I think he won the balance patch tournament, and he just looked through all the stuff. So, okay, every Civ got nerfed except Britons and Vikings. I would just play Britain and Vikings. And he just played this simple expo style, and yeah, didn't put too much thought into it.
Yeah.
So I don't really see.
I think that's the thing. I think people need to stop overthinking it. Stop trying to predict what the implications of reducing a stat on a unit is going to be, or stop trying to predict what the difference is going to be made by changing the cost of a technology. Play it. Just take the patch, play it, have everyone play it, and people will figure it out themselves. I mean, this is the thing. You can put the patch in place, and I bet 90% of the people wouldn't even realize they're playing a different game if it was done subtly, because the changes are so small. And the people who it does affect, they will figure it out. I mean, Age of Empires, the meta game has changed over the last 16 years for a long time, but it's definitely stagnating now. There's definitely not too much that can change anymore. And people, I feel like it would be a really good thing for the community to actually have something to figure out. Like, it's a new piece to the puzzle. It's like, okay, this is a new balance patch. Let's figure out what's strong. Let's figure out what's weak now. And, that's something interesting and something that everyone can take part in and do together. And a lot of people probably wouldn't even notice anyway.
Yeah. And the last issue I want to raise is for like more than 95% of the community, balancing isn't the main issue of losing or winning. For the typical, like, let's call them HD 1700 or whatever, it's so unimportant if there's a transporter in Dark Age, if the trade card takes 2 pop, if Marion's resources last 20%. You can improve so much on your micro, on your macro, on game knowledge in general. So, like, I feel like balancing should be a small part of like keeping the fun in the game, and for like the elite players to have as fair of a fight with different civilizations or with different humans as possible.
I mean, how much of the game is fun for figuring it out, and how much of the game is fun for just mechanically playing? Because I feel like right now, the pro players, they don't have anything to figure out anymore. They're just going through the motions. They know what's strong in every situation. They know the best kind of meta game, and they will try and play to that meta game as best they can. And the challenge is really who can play the best meta game. Or, I guess the random elements come into play with the map generation, but that's about it. But I did actually write something down on the train because I wanted to bring this up. I wrote down on some notes. I said there's going to be a tournament list posted soon, which was in the announcement. They said that. And I'm interested to see how many tournaments are being planned for this and how big they're going to be. Is there going to be any prize pool? And I also read somewhere that they were planning on hosting some new concept ideas for events. And I would really just say be cautious about that, because if you're mixing new event ideas, as in like new setting styles, with a balance patch, I feel like that takes away from the fact that you're playing the balance patch. And we need to just see standard settings and see how the balance patch affects things.
Yeah. So I have one very little insight on that. I was
Hmm.
asked to cast balance patch tournaments, and I said,
Okay.
okay, I'm super bad at casting like 1600s going at each other. I can only cast if I can really feel the hype, if I know the players, if I
Mm.
know like how they're playing, and then I can really get into it and can like get the hype really going. And then I said, like, if you do a tournament with like 8 2K players or 4 2K players,
Mm.
I will absolutely do it. And like two weeks later, I got a confirmation that it's going to happen.
Okay. Cool.
And I'm not really sure if that's still alive, but at least they're aiming for top players.
Yeah,
And
that's good.
yeah, I think that's the best step they could do for
Mm.
promoting the patch.
Me too. I think someone in the chat said that another important thing to keep in mind is keeping it entertaining for the viewers. And I think that's a good point. There's only so many team games with the same meta that people can watch before it's just a bit like, it's the same. We've seen it already. I think, you've got to consider the average viewer isn't going to appreciate the more advanced mechanics and things in the game, and they just see, okay, it's a Hun War. I've seen this 100 times, and I'm now going to go and tune out. We can bring new people into the community. We need to keep them engaged and keep them entertained. Now, I'm not saying that the balance patch should be made specifically to keep noobs entertained, but I do think that it will play a part in keeping the community interest alive and keep players around for longer. I think that's a really big part to consider. Like, seriously, it's underrated because I go back to Dota again, but I think it's a good point because every time there's a balance patch, it doesn't matter if you're like a 2K MMR player or a 9K MMR player, everyone's talking, everyone's figuring it out, everyone's now going to find out what the new meta game is. And as soon as they've figured it out, there's a new patch, and then they have to figure it out all over again. And it just keeps everything so entertaining. And you see different heroes in tournaments every time there's a new patch, and it's refreshing. The community loves it. And one of our players, in fact, Yapzor, he brought back Clockwork recently, which is a hero in the game, and we played it. And ever since he made that pick in our draft, we saw some other teams picking Clockwork, which is really cool because he had an impact on the metagame as it is at the pro level right now.
Okay. Yeah, obviously that would be very very sweet for AC. So two questions in chat I wanted to go into. We work for ice cream said, okay, what can we do to get it back to lots of people? So I can tell you what we like. He said, okay, I have a lot of people who played it in the past, but don't know that there's actually a scene now. I can speak from Vubli. We had the plan to do it big for the China finals. Like, what was it, like 3 weeks ago or something?
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we weren't too sure how the internet would be there, and then we canceled everything. So the thing we did in the Maldives was doing it on Reddit, r/games. I think that was huge because lots of people from games actually came over, and AOC is a very very love games from like
Mm.
end 20s, early 30-year-olds, and which is basically Reddit. And Twitch front page was the goal as well. And then you
Mhm.
have like so many people actually seeing it. So those are the big things you could aim for. But we couldn't do that in China because we didn't know the exact starting time and didn't know how stable the stream would be. So we didn't want to go front page and then deliver low quality. And yeah, it kind of came true by us needing to restream from DoYu. And the other idea was, did we already discuss the African Kingdoms patch on Vubi? Everyone who's watching and didn't know that, you can actually play the Forgotten Empires and African Kingdoms
Mhm.
on Vubli. You're very involved with that. Maybe you talk about it.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I know the guy. The Tails is the guy who did the conversion mod so that you could play African Kingdoms specifically on Vubli. And he used to be in a TF2 team with me quite some time ago. It was kind of cool. But yeah, it's a little bit more difficult to install than a standard mod, but you just have to go to the Vubli workshop and it's under data mods. And you can basically download it from there, and the instructions are quite clear, but you just have to install it into your Age of Empires directory and then select the mod from Voobly. I'd probably make a video actually on how to do this, because it's like a couple of extra steps, and people can be pretty lazy, to be honest. So if it's made clear and people don't have to think about it, then they're more likely to do it.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. Okay, then let's go into our last topic point. The Champions League
Yeah.
announced today. Let's take a look at the trailer. If we want to, let me see if
Okay.
I can do that. So that was it. And yeah, so AOC Champions League will be a tournament from, let me see. Oh, those four people. The Viper winning Arena tournament, Winchester, the second place finisher from the Arabia tournament, Tattoo winning the Mega Random Championship, and Fire, the reigning champion of Islands. They're playing a group stage format. And let me see, I think I got an overlay for that. Yes, I do.
Ah, cool.
And yeah, it will be all those champions will actually play their maps. So we'll always start with Mega Random, then they will pick between Arabia Islands Arena, play the other map, and after game 4 the remaining map, everyone against each other, and everyone will bring their money. So it's not best of 4, but every game has to be played. And yeah, I love those formats of champions. Some people might ask now, Winchester, did he win Arabia Championship? No, he didn't. Yo did, but Yo wasn't too fond of playing more Mega Random, so he refused the invitation there.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. It's nice. It's a good way to kind of bring everything together at the end of the year, and it should be really good. I think the trailer was good as well. I think who made that? Was it Salad? Yeah, Salad Escape. That was good stuff.
What?
So, what are your predictions anyway?
Okay. I'm a huge Tattoo fan. Like, personally, I like his playstyle, love him as a person.
Yeah.
But I probably see him as the weakest player of those 4. Then it comes a lot to Winchester, how he's adapting. I can see him being strong in Arena and Arabia, but not so much on Islands and Mega Random. Fire, obviously super strong on Islands, becoming better on Arabia. Not so sure about Mega Random on Arena there. And Viper obviously being like the most complete player there.
Yeah.
Has to be the favorite.
Yeah, I mean, my prediction would be Viper, then Fire, and then, I don't know, between Vinch and Tato, I'm not sure. Not sure.
Okay.
I mean, what do you think, like, if Mr. Yo was in it? I think that would change things around quite a lot.
I would give him second place. I don't see him too strong in Arena. I see him losing Islands against the Viper, against Fire. Mega Random pretty even between the others. So, yeah, I think he is more of a safe contester for second place, but not a contester for first place.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no, I think this will be great. And I think there's a bunch of different tournaments coming up, since we've got the X-Patch tournaments, I guess, to be announced. And then I also have some things coming up as well, which, as I said earlier, I will announce hopefully next week, if not the week after.
Okay. Yeah, and I can announce that I will be hosting 2 tournaments in December as well. So will be a lot coming our ways for sure. And yeah, something I want to mention about the prize pool. Voobly Official gave $150, and they add 50% for every dollar donated to the prize pool as well. So if now you decide, okay, I love this format, Zach, and will donate $100, they will put another $50 on top. So
Is there a limit on that? What if someone just comes
I
out of
think
nowhere?
there
What
is
if
a
the
limit.
Tyrant sponsor comes in
I think
and
there's a limit.
oh, it is. Okay. Yeah, it says 150 overall. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But it can easily go up to like $300 to $500 now in total.
Yeah, that's a good initiative actually. It gets people to actually donate, and I think we're gonna need to see more sort of crowd-funded events as well. I think that's the direction that the balance patch guys are gonna go into, and I think that's good. I think if people want to see something and they like the idea, they're more likely to support it. And I think a balance patch kind of thing is definitely going to have the kind of people who want to support it because they want to see the balance patch, and that should hopefully give a good amount of people willing to crowdfund.
Yeah, that's sweet. Someone in the chat is asking, when is Nations Cup 3? I think it was aimed to start in like early 2017 with the finals in the summer of 2017 or something like that. So I would roughly say being from March to June or something, but that's kind of my guess. But it will happen. And I think it will have an offline finals in Fuzhou again. But we will see that.
Cool.
Yeah.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I don't think we have any other topics to talk about today, but
Totally
do you have any ideas about next time? Is there a next time? Have we done good enough?
Well, I absolutely want to talk. Like, I actually want to talk to so many streamers. I want to do a talk show with Mamp for sure. I think he is like a super interesting person, which never like answered a lot of questions which a lot of people want to know, including me. So that's someone I want to interview. Then I want to do like spotting the top teams for the 2v2 Master of Arabia